Okay, so next I'm actually going to go into a point. It's about how to constantly and basically create content. So I actually started to do video. It was, what was it when I was at uni? So like 10, 15 years ago. I think YouTube was actually new then, but I've been doing it for a long time. And actually on my YouTube channel, I'm approaching 1,000 videos, which I'll probably hit before October. But what's really interesting is that you have, I think it's no great secret that actually creating content and doing live streams and podcasts and whatever is helpful for your business to raise profile, get across your personality, your knowledge and stuff on the topic. And I think people kind of get that. The challenge often is, how do you do it in a way that before you get into the swing of things, it's so much effort to create one piece of content, to create one video. And it is, I'll give you that. But actually, when you get set up and you have the proper processes and stuff in place, it gets mega, mega easy. And one of the things I knew when I was looking to build a business is that nowadays, no matter if you're Paul Chan and you lay kind of flooring, or you have a cupcake business or whichever, the ability to actually utilize this free medium in many ways can do massive, massive things. That part of the reason with the roadmap, we're in 33 different countries now, is because people have found us in Norway and Ghana and Costa Rica and China, that if I didn't do any of this, they wouldn't do it and they wouldn't find it. And also as well, consistency is really important. That when you do one post once, you might get some people kind of see or learn something about you. But the trick is, and the hard bit is to do it every week, week after week, and what happens over time is that you really get to know people. And one of the big things that I talk to a lot of people about as well, and I spoke to Alex Wright about it last night on the podcast, is that often people don't interact. So they might actually watch the content, they might flick it on, they might have it in the background. But if they see that you're doing it, you're still actually getting exposure there, which adds value to who you are and what you're trying to do, even if they don't really kind of watch it. And if you can, produce really good visuals and audio and stuff, what it does, it reflects really well on your product or service, so that at the right time, if they're ready to buy, the hope is that they at least kind of think of you. And actually, just a quick shout out to, I follow guys called Wonder Films based out of Middlesbrough, and they do a podcast series called Beat the Scroll kind of podcast. And what's really interesting, I watch that every week when they post about it, and they have different kind of guests. But the common theme is Chloe, so Chloe Clover that presents that show. I learn a little bit more about her every week. That actually, when she shares personal stories and stuff to really kind of talk to the guests, I really like it. That although I haven't hired them yet, I'm not opposed to doing it in the future. But actually, seeing other people's content really kind of works. And then likewise, funnily enough, I've since had conversations with people that Chloe has interviewed, who I've spoke to about giving business to. And the point is, it's when you get to share your visions, your values, your mannerisms, your tone of voice, and actually just consistently show up, it does build trust. And I've kind of won contracts off the back of it as well, but I know it is kind of difficult to do. So how can you do that? How do you actually kind of make it easy? The first one is about processes and setup. So the biggest challenge genuinely when you kind of do this is that if you want to film some content, it's to find where you want to film that has either good natural light, which is best, but also good sound where you're not going to get buses in the background or someone cutting the grass or whatever, because that's a nightmare as well. Then you have to go and set up the tripod, set up the lights, check the audio. Will it work okay? Is the person comfortable? What's in shot? How are you going to edit it? And that's a pain in the ass to do. It just is. One of the things that I really found, and the reason why I always wanted to create a studio like this, is that when I first set out in the pandemic, I would record from our spare bedroom at home, and every single time I'd set it all up from scratch. I'd set up the lights, do the thing, do the broadcast, whatever, then pack it all down, and then the next week or 2 weeks later, I'd set it all up again. It was a pain in the ass. It was a nightmare. And I always had a dream where actually I wanted to have my own space where actually I could set things up properly, but actually start to invest in systems, processes and stuff, so that now when I do this, other than turn the lights on and do some stuff on OBS, the software that I use, it's kind of ready. But it's also ready in a way that all the lights are in the perfect place. I have all the sound deadening and stuff, so that hopefully the quality is quite good. All my setups and tickers and all the graphics and stuff that you can see are all pre-done. That's often the hardest bit to kind of set up. But once you've done it once, and if you have a space where you can leave your camera set up so that you just go and turn it on next time, it's so much easier to kind of do. And it was just something that I wanted to kind of, talk about. So yesterday I had a podcast and it was to do mental health. And what was really interesting was that when I put the post out originally to ask for guests to talk on that kind of topic, I was, a lot of people applied, which was fantastic. But what I was able to do was use the same setup that I use on a Monday. I do actually change some of the lighting so it's a bit more moody, which is just a personal kind of thing, just for that kind of topic. But the point is, it's using the same setup in different ways. So for instance, that when I do the podcast on a Monday, I use exactly the same setup. I just don't turn that light on to do the Thursdays. So I go and I do the live broadcast and I speak to Alex and that kind of thing, which is really useful. But then I also do videos for YouTube where I do tech reviews. So actually yesterday, straight after the interview, I reviewed this. It's called an ND filter, which is something that I use on the camera I have over there. But I didn't actually have to change anything. In OBS, I changed the scene, so I actually removed all of the stuff that you can see, all the graphics. But then I could film it, and I did 2 takes yesterday, where I just talked for 2 minutes on the product, what I thought about it, how much it was it any good, whatever. But all of these things, you create lots of different content that then they all get clipped up, they all become their own kind of video. But it's ways to use that and really kind of make it work. And then when I do this, so this video in itself will become 3 or 4 different separate videos which go onto YouTube. And the beauty again of doing it live is, although it's more pressure to present, I don't have to worry about edits and stuff because it's already kind of gone. And then actually when I put this into Final Cut Pro, I basically just do start finish on the different bits. That's why I use the whiteboard, so I know exactly when the segment started and finished. So really quickly I can just export the clips, upload them, and then actually if you use the same kind of template for your graphics, your thumbnails, the stuff that you did the week before, it's really easy to do. It is a hassle to set up for the first time, but the more you get into the swing of doing those kind of things, I promise you it gets easier. But it's with that consistency that it gradually grows and builds over time. That yesterday I got my first email from Google for my first AdSense paycheck, which is 10 years in the making. But actually it'll be like 20 quid. So it won't be a decent monetary value, but it's just progress that in 5-10 years time, because that's what this kind of journey is for me. Hopefully it might one day become more, but actually it's the kind of thing of doing the setup, doing all the pain once, or in this case twice, because I have 2 different setups, but it's actually in the same room, really kind of helps. So if you want to create consistent content, get a feel for what it is that you want to do. So if you're Alex yesterday and you want to start a mental health podcast, if you know the camera setup, you know what the look and feel is, you want to set it up, yes, do it once and do it properly, but then leave the stuff up, don't take it down. Even if it means you have to buy a second camera to go and do your stuff out and about with, the amount of time it saves almost gives you the encouragement to keep doing stuff. And I don't know if that kind of makes sense, but it was almost where, so my average at the moment is about 10 to 13 videos per week that go onto YouTube. Being honest, that's probably a bit too much, but actually because it's across different podcasts, different guests, different topics, it kind of works for me as well. But if you ever, do you stream, do you game, do you create content? Do you ever struggle to create content? Often the fear, and I even had it this morning, it was a case of, do I broadcast? Do I not? Do I want to do it? I don't want to annoy people. But, that kind of second guessing yourself is really important to kind of, fight through that. One of the classic things as well, you see for your business or whatever, you see all the content that you put out. But the truth is your audience doesn't. Your audience will only see a tiny fraction of the stuff that you ever put out. So almost you should never really worry about saying the same thing too much, because chances are people aren't going to see it anyway. But if you stop doing it, I guarantee nobody's going to see it. And that's just the death of business and stuff as well. So it's just that I wanted to kind of talk about. I'd love to know for you, do you love creating content? what do you find easy, what do you struggle with, and almost what works for you. And I'd love to kind of share it with the network as well.